All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I certainly do appreciate it. My name is Brian Sanderoff, and for those of you that have not joined us on this in this venue before, let me just do a quick housekeeping thing. If you're not familiar with me, as I said, I'm Brian Sanderoff. I'm a traditionally trained pharmacist. I call myself a holistic pharmacist these days, and that's because I don't do that count pour, lick stick, type and gripe thing that most pharmacists do standing behind a counter in a pharmacy. I have a wellness center and a practice where I help counsel people to learn to look at their health in a different way. And I'll tell you, the big thrust of the work that I do is about helping people understand the true ramifications of their decisions. It is my contention that in our medicine here in this country, we are misinformed grossly about a lot of different things. And so we make decisions based on poor information, and then we get results that aren't necessarily what we wanted or what we're looking for. And so a big part of my work is to really help inform people so that they can make more informed decisions for themselves. And of course, tonight, talking about weight loss is one of those topics where I believe there's a lot of misinformation out there. I also want to point out that this is live, and you folks that are on with me have the opportunity to participate as well. Because of the volume, the number of people that are on, I can't have everybody's microphones on because we get a lot of feedback. However, right on your control panel there's a question box, and if there's something that you would like to ask, if there's something that I talked about that you have a question about, then please type it right in. As soon as you type it in, I see it on my box, and I'll address it when it's appropriate to do so, either right then and there or if I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later. Uh, a big part of my work is to be available as a resource. And so what you see in front of you is the name of our website, wellbeinggps.com. I encourage you to go there. There's a lot of content, a lot of information, including a lot of recorded webinars like we're doing tonight on all sorts of topics. Phone number, toll free, is all over the website as well, and I do encourage you to call and ask questions. Sometimes the information that you hear or even that we're giving is general information, and there are times when you need help in applying that information to you as an individual. And so please do not be shy about seeking out that help from us, because that's what we're here for. Now, I have a special guest joining me tonight because in our wellness center, we have a nurse who is also a health coach named Jill Previs, who actually is the one who administers this healthy transformation weight loss program. And so I asked Jill to join us for the presentation tonight. Jill, you want to just give a quick background about yourself?
Sure. Hi, welcome everybody. I'm excited that you're on, and I'm excited to be on with you guys. Yes, as Brian said, I have a nursing background. I'm also a certified health coach through the Institute of Integrated Nutrition, and very excited and passionate about helping people really look at their nutrition and their lifestyle and what kinds of foods they're taking in. And as Brian and I like to constantly say, that food is your medicine, and so many people are unaware of how poorly they're feeling just from the foods that they're eating, and then of course the lifestyle components as far as stress and exercise. So I'm looking forward to, as we get into this webinar tonight, telling you a little bit more about how how I work and what I do with helping people reach their goals.
That's great. Thank you. I also tell people that on the front page of our website, the very first banner that comes up, there's like a script of banners that go across the top. And the very first one is one that we just put up that is about this healthy transformation. And on that banner, it asks a very simple question, and that question you see in front of you as well, and that is, does the weight that's stated on your driver's license match what your scale says? And usually when I say that to people, I get that knowing little nod, because we all have experienced the fact that as we go on in life, we have a tendency to put some weight on. And depending on where we are and how um, active we are and what our diet's like, we have a tendency to put on 2, 3, 4, 5, even 10 pounds a year. And after a few years of not really realizing that that's happening, before you know it, we can be in a situation where we really have to do something about it. And so if you were to go to the website and click on that banner, you would see a lot more information. You'll see some pictures of some people that have been through our program, and we answer a lot of the sort of frequently asked questions that people have about this program. So again, I'll ask that question: does the weight stated on your driver's license match what your scale says? And if the answer is no, then there is something you can do about it. Of course, this time of year is the time when many people are making those New Year's resolutions to try to lose weight. And this is just a little graphic in front of you that shows you how many people have actually tried to lose weight numerous times. It's amazing to me. And so you'll see the three bars within each section is 1990, 1999, and then 2005. And so look at that. Literally, more than a quarter of us have tried to lose weight somewhere between 3 and 10 times in our lives. And that also, to me, is a key indicator of that thing that I was saying earlier about misinformation. Because if we were learning the proper way to maintain our weight and maintain our fat or lower our fat appropriately, and we learned to do it the right way, then we wouldn't have to go through it again. But what many of us do is we yo-yo diet. We do a fad diet, or we do something that will help us lose weight, but it's not sustainable, and we don't learn to change our habits. And this is really the evidence of that. I mean, look at the percentage of us that have tried to lose weight more than 10 times. It's really kind of amazing to me. And I also like to point out, and this goes back to that misinformation thing again, that when we starve ourselves and we lose weight that way, one way or another, we don't actually lose as much fat as we think we do. We end up losing muscle. And then when we gain the weight back, what we've done actually in that drop and gain is actually increased our percent body fat. And that is the key thing here. We do not want to increase our percent body fat. We want to go just the opposite. Truth is, I don't care as much about what the scale says. I care about what your percent body fat is, because that is the measure that really, we're able to then predict longevity or, the onset of all sorts of chronic diseases. So what's the real number one reason why? Well, number one can be our food choices. We all live in a society where we are under pressure. We have less and less leisure time. We have more and more time where we have to work, cart our kids around to school, try to do our other activities that we like. And so we end up eating foods that are fast foods, whether that is in a fast food restaurant or whether that's in our microwave, pre-prepared foods that we just heat up. A lot of us get caught in this sort of tornado of activity. And so our food choices become less and less. Number two are toxins in our environment. We all know that we're exposed to toxins through our air, through our water, through our food, through chemicals. I remember it wasn't all that long ago that like the millionth chemical was invented in the world. And, all those chemicals get into our body, and our body has to try to get rid of them. The way the body works is that a toxin enters into the body, goes through the bloodstream, the liver detects them, and then the liver will try to wage chemical warfare to break that toxin down into other forms so that we can then either use it or get rid of it. Now, if we get overwhelmed with toxins and our liver can't do that, then the body has another mechanism to sort of preserve life, and that is it wants to store those toxins. And so fat, one of the purposes of fat cells is actually to store toxins away from the organs. And so the more toxins we have in our body, the more need we have for fat cells, more toxin storing capacity, if you want to look at it that way. And so one of the reasons why we have an ever expanding waistline is because of the toxins in our body. I put hidden sugars on here too, because there are a lot of hidden sugars. The food industry has certain regulations, and one of those regulations is that on a label where it lists the ingredients, it has to list the ingredients that are the most first on the list. And so, excuse me, companies have recognized that if they have a product that's full of sugar, and sugar is the number one ingredient on the list, that people wouldn't buy it. And so they start using alternative forms of sugar and multiple forms of sugar within one food, so that the actual amount of each individual one is less, so it can be lower down on the list. And so you'll see sugars and you'll see fructose and corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup and all sorts of other ways that the food industry hides sugar in things. And I think that is another reason why we have our ever expanding waistlines and our ever increasing numbers on our scale. I'll also point out real quickly that the artificial sweeteners is another responsible factor here. Now, I know that when the artificial sweeteners first hit the market, the idea would be that, wow, people will use these and we'll have less sugar consumption. And just the opposite has happened. I think there's a couple reasons for that. Number one is that those artificial sweeteners sort of offer a false safety net. There's a lot of people out there who will drink their Diet Coke and then say, oh, I've had a Diet Coke, so now I can have a piece of pie. And then the other reason is that these artificial sweeteners are way more sweet than sugar is. And so it raises the bar on what the sweet actually tastes like. And so we are constantly sort of looking for more and more sweet to be able to actually register sweet anymore. And so the truth is that when the artificial sweeteners hit the market, sugar consumption has actually gone up astronomically since that. Now, all of those reasons that you see in front of you are really important, but the number one reason is actually misinformation, as I have spoken about before. The number one reason why we have an issue with our weight is because we are misinformed about the foods that we eat, about how we should eat those foods. Simple things like I had mentioned high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup leads to fat in your body. It's a form of sugar that the body doesn't readily use for energy, but boy, the body does not waste any energy for tomorrow. It will store it. And high fructose corn syrup leads right to fat. And when I talk about misinformation, I'm sure you guys have seen the commercials from the, fructose corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup society putting out these commercials that tell us that high fructose corn syrup is natural. And so it has to be good for you. Nothing could be further from the truth. That's just one example of misinformation. Another example would be about how whole grains are actually healthy for us, and that's what we should be eating. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. I put this little graphic up here because this is really the crux of the understanding when it comes to grains. And so this shows a little evolution. Interesting thing about this is that when we look at a graphic like this, it looks like it's equal distance if you were thinking about these going from left to right as a timeline. But the truth is that it took millions and millions of years to get from the monkey to this guy right here, the one who's second from the right. And it really only took a few thousand years to get from this guy to the fat guy at the end. And so the point here is that as a species, we have been on this planet for millions and millions of years. And genetically, we have developed as a species under very specific conditions. And we have, through natural selection through evolution, we have developed genetically to thrive under the conditions that we've been exposed to. Well, the condition of having grains as a staple in our diet is a relatively new phenomenon. It really didn't start until we stopped being, wanderer-gatherers, and or gatherer-hunters, and then started doing what we would call modern agriculture. And that started somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 years ago, depending on where you are in the world. So for 7,000 to 10,000 years, we've had grains as a staple in our diet. But for millions of years before that, we didn't. And the result of having those grains in our diet is a insulin spike, which then causes a sugar crash. And then the result of that sugar crash is wanting more sugar, and that's what has led to our problems. I'm hearing a little bit of a hiss there. Sorry about that. So there you go. That's better. Thanks. So the point here is that we are eating grains as a staple in our diet, and we have not been doing it long enough to have made the genetic adaptation to be able to thrive under that condition. And if you were to hold a gun to my head and say, okay, what is the number one reason why we have the chronic disease that we have in our society today? That would be why. So then that begs the question, how do we lose weight effectively? Well, we can decrease calories. It's very important to understand, though. Let me talk just real quickly about the whole calorie thing. So, we burn calories for energy and we consume calories in our food. And it should be an equal thing. If we want to maintain the weight exactly where we are, then you would burn the same number of calories that you can consume. And if you wanted to lose weight, you would burn more calories than you're consuming. And if you wanted to gain weight, you would burn less calories than you're consuming. Now, we all have something that's called the basal metabolic rate. This is the number of calories while we sit around not doing anything. That's digestion, that's respiration, that's all of the enzymatic activity that's going on in your body, while you're sitting around. Um, and a basal metabolic rate for a typical person, depending on whether you're male or female and whether you're big or small, will be somewhere between, say, 1,200 calories and 2,200 calories a day. And then we also burn calories from our activities. So if you're more active, maybe you burn another 1,000 or 1,500 calories a day. So if we took a typical, 160-pound woman, she probably burns around, her basal metabolic rate's usually around 1,200 calories a day, and maybe she burns another 1,000 calories a day with her activities. So if she consumes more than 2,200 calories a day, she's going to gain weight. So there's also the understanding that not all calories are created equal, meaning that calories coming from processed and refined carbohydrates do not work in the body the same way that a calorie does from, say, fat or from protein. So if you want to effectively lose weight, you really have to eliminate those processed and refined carbs. And that means obviously cakes and candies and donuts. I mean, we all know that. But this is where the misinformation comes in. Anything that's grain-based, bread, pasta, cereal, rice, corn, those things all need to be avoided. Now, at some point, when your body is using sugar differently, you can add them back to your diet in moderate amounts, and it won't have the same effect that it has on many of us today. But there are many of us who walk around with a condition that's known as, metabolic syndrome or syndrome X or insulin resistance. And what it means is that when we get a sugar in our in our bloodstream, our body our body doesn't use that sugar efficiently. And if we can't use it today, we're going to save it for tomorrow. And that's where this whole, storing energy comes in. And again, another word for that is fat. So we really want to eliminate processed and refined carbs. And we'll talk about that. Jill will talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second. We also need to get the right kind of exercise. Now, again, going back to caveman times, the kind of exercise that we developed as a species for millions and millions of years was where we would have short bursts of very intense exercise separated by longer periods of less intense exercise. So the term that we would use in today is interval training. And that's the thing that we should do. You do not benefit as much if you get on a treadmill for, say, a half an hour at a specific rate going at that whole time. So if you get on a treadmill and you get on and you're doing a pace of, say, 6, on the treadmill, and you do that consistently for 30 minutes, you do not get the same benefit as if you were to crank it up to 8 for, say 30 seconds and then go down to 4 for a couple minutes and then go up and then go down and go up and go down. That's interval training. When you do that, you burn fat more effectively. And then also I wrote reduce stress. Now, the truth is that a lot of us have stress and we can't really reduce the stress, but what we can do is reduce how we relate to that stress, how our body reacts to it. And there's all sorts of mechanisms to help with that, including the use of certain herbs and nutrients that will help. So those are how you can effectively lose weight. I put up on the screen here weight loss versus fat loss because this is really the key. It doesn't matter how much weight you lose. If you lose a ton of weight but you haven't lost any fat, you actually didn't make yourself any healthier, maybe just the opposite. And the example that I like to point out about this is with people that are anorexic, because people that are anorexic, literally they starve themselves. And lots of times people that go on a diet starve themselves as well. And the body will not let go of fat under starvation. your body genetically remembers when we were cavemen and when food wasn't always plentiful. And we have very specific mechanisms to maintain our life under starvation circumstances. And that two things that happen. Number one is we slow metabolism. Your body says, all right, there's no calories coming in, so we're not going to burn any calories either. And number two is your body says, I need to hold on to my stored energy. I need to hold on to the bank account of energy in my body. So when you lose weight, you actually lose muscle instead of fat when you starve. And so going back to someone that's anorexic, taken to their extreme, an anorexic can have a percent body fat as high as 50%. And when an anorexic dies from the anorexia, usually it's because of heart failure. And it's because the heart is a muscle, and this person is losing muscle to the point where heart can't function anymore. So weight loss versus fat loss. And there are lots of programs out there that can help you lose weight, but you're not necessarily losing fat. And that's a problem. So again, the results of starvation are you will get weight loss, but you can actually get an increase of percent body fat. And that is opposite of what you want. Your metabolism tanks. So, but what we like to point out to people is that if you decrease calories and maximize your nutrition, you can lose weight, and the majority of that weight will be fat. And there's another benefit to that, and that is that studies have shown on any species that has been studied this way that when you decrease calories and maximize nutrition, that species lives longer. Anywhere from 40% to 200%, depending on what species you're talking about. So the kind of program that we've put together, this Healthy Transformations program, is where we very carefully make sure that you get about 1,000 calories a day. And we work very hard to maximize the nutrition within that 1,000 calories. And the result is weight loss, mostly fat. So percent body fat goes down in every single one of our clients that we work with this program. And that's exactly what we want. So you get fat loss, you actually get muscle gain, and your metabolism increases. So this is one of the things I like to talk about. And actually, I'm going to ask Jill to do it because the truth is that many of us are starving even though we're getting extra calories, and that's because we're not getting our nutrition. So Jill, you want to address the screen?
Sure, I will. And I have the opportunity to sit down with so many people, and one of the first questions I do is obviously ask what they're eating every day. And even if somebody comes in and says, well, I eat pretty healthy, it's very unlikely that they're getting all of the phytonutrients, is what we call them, in their food that they're eating every day. So we encourage, we want to look at the rainbow colors, that you're getting your greens and your reds, and this is all in like your vegetable line and some fruits, the purple, the blue, the yellow, and the orange. And it's amazing when your cells start to get the right nutrients, that's going to help you to feel better, help with cravings and that sort of thing.
And the illustration here really shows how the percentage of us that fall short on getting that rainbow diet that Jill spoke about, and even worse when we start starving ourselves. And so there's a very specific way to do it. And so these are the general rules of thumb that you need to follow to be able to lose weight appropriately. And it's funny because that term lose weight and the term going on a diet, they don't sit well with us, because the truth is that if you go on a diet, at some point you're going to go off of it. But if you learn to forge a new relationship with your food, that's something that can last for your entire life. And so, and the same thing with weight loss. The truth is that I think if you put properly into your body what it wants and needs, your body will respond by normalizing. Now, for many of us, normalization means losing weight and losing fat. So these are the rule of thumb. Number one, eat low glycemic foods. Jill, explain what the glycemic index of a food is and why it's important to eat low glycemic foods.
Okay. Well, the glycemic level, when you're looking at that in food, is we want to have low glycemic foods so that you're keeping your blood sugar from those highs and lows of fluctuating. Because when you've got those spikes in your blood sugar, then you're going to eventually crash and have the lows. And so having the low glycemic food going in helps with that. It's also going to help tremendously to reduce cravings. And it's also going to help with your mood and your energy level.
So the glycemic index of a food is its property of how quickly it raises your blood sugar. Not necessarily that it has sugar in it, but how quickly it raises the blood sugar. So like a strawberry has a fair amount of sugar in it, but it also has enzymes and fibers and stuff. And so when you eat that, it's actually a moderate glycemic index food. Any sort of processed and refined carbohydrate, bread, pasta, cereal, grain, those are high glycemic index foods. It's always tell people, if your thing for breakfast is to have a 12 grain whole wheat bagel because you've been taught that that's actually healthy for you, it's a complex carb and blah, blah, blah. The truth is that for most of us, the way our bodies work, it's just like having a Snickers bar. And if that's the case, I say have the Snickers bar because that's a lot more fun. And, we're all about fun, right? So another way that you can sort of ask yourself whether it's a food that's good for you to eat is say, is this food that I'm eating, does nature present it in the form that I'm eating it? And I'll tell you what, you're good to eat bagels as soon as you see bagels growing on a bush, or pretzels growing on a tree, or bread growing on the end of a stalk. The processing that goes into making those foods turns it into a simple sugar that causes a sugar spike when you eat it. So rule number 2 is to eat something within 45 minutes of waking up. Jill, you want to jump in?
I sure do, and most people don't do this as well. And it's really important because when you wake up in the morning, your body has actually been kind of been starving. You've been fasting all night. And so your cells need that fuel. And so this is very important, and we recommend that you put good protein into you as well. If you don't, then your cells are going to be playing catch up all day long. A
And
very simple to new, habit to implement in your diet.
and it's funny because the feedback I get sometimes from people is that, especially people who don't eat breakfast, is that if they eat breakfast, then they find that they're hungrier later in the day. And to me, that's completely sensible because, in essence, your body's saying, hey, you gave me some food and I want more, just like Jill said. If you get up, you start moving around, you don't eat anything, the message you're sending your body from the outside world is that there's no food available. And the body's response is slow metabolism and to hold on to as much stored energy as possible. When you wake up, you start moving around and you eat something, the message you're sending your body is there's plenty of food available. And the body's response is, I don't need as much stored energy. I need bigger muscles to go run down those deer that we're going to eat later. So within 45 minutes of waking up, and it doesn't have to be a huge thing, and this is part of what Jill works with people individually with, is that, many of us don't have time to make a 2-egg omelet with veggies in the morning. And so either you can eat leftovers from dinner, you can have a handful of nuts, you can have a half of a strawberry, half of an apple or a handful of strawberries, you can make a protein shake or eat a low glycemic protein bar. There's lots of options that are quick and easy to get moving and to start, building the momentum of energy for the day. And then rule number 3 is that you have to eat something every 2.5 to 3 hours throughout the day. Jill, you want to explain that?
Yeah, also just really important because that's going to help you once again to maintain your blood sugar, to maintain, just what you need as far as your energy. And it will also help you from having those low dips in your blood sugar. And then, of course, that's 9 times out of 10, that's going to lead to a craving. And so this helps tremendously. And it keeps you from getting into that famished mode. And then you end up grabbing and making the wrong, unhealthy decisions.
Right. Very good. Thank you. So, general rule of thumb as well. Let's talk about the exercise. Again, the right kind of exercise. And that means interval training. And you can do that with any sort of exercise that you like. If you go out and you run on the track at school, at a high school or whatever, what I'm talking about is sprinting along the straight edge, which is about 100 yards, and then jogging all the way around to where you started again, then sprinting and then jogging. It's usually a 3-to-1 ratio, and you can do the same thing on your treadmill. You crank it up for 30 seconds, and then you slow it down for 90 seconds. And I like people to monitor their heart rate when they're doing this because that's how you'll know you're doing it right. During that burst, your heart rate should go to close to your maximum. The maximum will be different from person to person depending on how old you are and your gender and some other factors. But for me personally, if I'm on the treadmill and I'm doing that running, my heart rate can go up to 170, 175, and then when I slow it down, it'll come down into the 120 range, and then I kick it up again. If you go on your computer and just do a Google search for Peak 8, Peak 8, that will explain one of these ways of doing that. When you do this, you create growth hormone like no other activity. And that growth hormone is fat targeting and muscle building. And you can do that on any sort of machine that you want or any sort of activity. If your thing is dancing, so you dance real crazy for 30 seconds and then you slow it down for 90 seconds and then you do it again and you repeat that 8 times. So you have to make sure you get the right kind of exercise. And again, this theory is based on how we developed as a species. Number two is you got to reduce stress or the effects of stress. And I would refer you to the webinar archive that we had on the website. I did a really nice webinar about stress that goes into this in much more detail. The effects of stress in our body in the short term are life preserving, but that was meant to be a burst of stress, like a saber-toothed tiger jumping in the cave. We get exposed to chronic stress, and when that happens, the physiological effects end up becoming life-altering instead of life-saving. One of those effects is increased blood sugar, which then leads to more fat storage. When it comes to the fat storage, when we're under chronic stress, our body is trying to protect the organs, and so that bulge around the middle is usually about stress as well. And we know that that's the worst kind of fat that you can carry, and that's the one that makes you more susceptible to all sorts of chronic issues, including cardiovascular disease. And so many of us don't have the ability to really change the stresses in our lives, but we certainly can change the way we react to or interact with those stressors. And lots of times I use herbs and nutrients known as adaptogens to help with that process. Number three is you have to get sleep, and it has to be at the right time. And so a key organ in your body making sugar, using sugar, and storing fat is actually your liver. And your liver gets the best opportunity to regenerate, repair, and do its job between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And for every hour that you miss of sleep during that crucial time, it takes 2 hours to make up. So if you get 7 hours of sleep every night and you sleep from midnight to 7, you will benefit differently from those same 7 hours if you sleep from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And anything that you would do at night after 10 o'clock, you can do in the morning, early in the morning as well, whether that's recording a TV show that you like to watch or, reading or doing your laundry or surfing the net or playing on Facebook, whatever. And then number four is drink more water. I can't emphasize enough how important this is. One, it being properly hydrated helps cells communicate with each other. And that's one of the things that we measure when we're working with our patients is where fluid is in their body, inside of cells versus outside of cells. And when your cells are fully inflated that way, they talk to each other better. And that means that you use sugar more appropriately. And then number two, when you are losing weight, again, one of the purposes of fat cells is to store toxins. And so when you lose your fat cells, you loosen toxins in your body. And you have to have a way of getting them out of your body. And that's why drinking more water helps all of that flow right out of your body. So we have a specific program that we run, which is called Healthy Transformations. Now, we do this with our clients and patients in the Baltimore area. However, we have the ability to do this remotely. And so this is what the program, these are all the components of the program, and I'm going to have Jill go through them with you in a second. But understand that if you are out in Boulder right now listening, or if you're down in DC, I see some people here from both of those areas, these are actually programs that you can do that we can do remotely as well. So Jill, why don't you go through real quickly the different components of the Healthy Transformation Program?
Okay, so you will meet with me if you're here locally. If not, we'll do this via technology. We'll do a thorough initial consultation. I'm going to get your health history. We are going to look at what your diet consists of now, what your goals are. Obviously, I'm going to look at weight and measurements. We do something else called a BIA, which is a bioimpedance analysis, and that is an excellent tool that allows us to look at how your cells are communicating. It allows us to look at how your percentage of body fat. Brian mentioned the basal metabolic rate. It calculates that for us. We also look at how your cells are handling fluid, whether it's in your tissues or in your cells, which is where we want it. And that gives us a really good baseline for the 12-week program. And then the 3 follow-up consultations, those are monthly. And we're getting another BIA to make sure that your cells are doing what we want them to do. It also allows us to look at how much fat you're actually losing, because obviously we don't want you losing muscle. And in those consultations, we're going to be talking about your successes, any struggles you might have. The other nice benefit when you're working with me as a health coach is you have access to me, via email, texting, phone calls. If you have questions about what you should be eating, if you're struggling, if you happen to be an emotional eater and you need somebody just to kind of reach out to talk to kind of work through a craving you might be having. We also have 6 group education and counseling sessions. We run those every other week. If you're local, we have them at Wellbeing in Hunt Valley. If you are not local, then we would do them, in a webinar format. Then there's, in that 12-week period, there's a 1 private coaching session with me that's for an hour, where we can sort of dive in to, other things that you might want to be talking about and learning about as far as nutrition and lifestyle. An emotional eating self-hypnosis CD, which is excellent. This is going to help you look at a couple of different things. It's a way to get you just kind of slow down and focus on meditation and how to de-stress yourself. It's very good also because it's designed specifically for this program and will allow you to sort of start visualizing and seeing yourself having success. We also give you a pedometer. Lifestyle exercise is very important, as I'm sure you all know, with helping to have success with losing weight. And we kind of meet you right where you are as far as exercise, but the pedometer is a good way to at least get started. We ultimately like to see 10,000 steps a day, but if you can only do 1,200 or 5,000, that's good. At least it's a start, and it's a good way just to get a baseline of what your daily, walking activity is. You also get a 1-month free membership to EP Fitness if you are local in the Baltimore area, and I believe if you're in Boulder and you belong to the fitness center out there, you would have access to that as well. And then included in this program is the Healthy Transformation medical food and supplements. And those come in a monthly kit. And on the next slide, we're going to show you what's in those kits.
Yeah, so there's the kit, and this is a key part of this. And I want to point out that this Healthy Transformation program, in the title we said scientifically proven weight loss, and it really is. We have our own clinical experience with it because we've been doing it for about a year now, but we also have a study that was done with people, and I'm going to go through some of the numbers that showed up from that study. But the key point here goes back to it's not just about caloric restriction, it's about caloric restriction and maximizing nutrition. And so the pack that you have in front of you, this is a month's supply of everything. And so in this box here are these packets of these nutrients. It's a multivitamin, it's healthy fat, it's vitamin D. You also get a probiotic, which is a good bacteria formula. You get bars and shakes, and you will have as part of your program either 1 bar or 1 shake every day as part of your 4 or 5 eating times during the day. All of this, and then there's a fiber that you use in the evening that plays a role with 1, removing toxins, and 2, helps sort of fill you up at a time when many of us have a tendency to munch on things that we know aren't healthy for us. So all of that together equates to maximizing nutrition, not just the macronutrients of your proteins and your fats, but also the micronutrients of the vitamins A's and B's and C's and all of those things together. Very, very important part of this. It also is what helps keep us nutritionally satisfied. Many of us eat not because we actually need the calories, but because our bodies are searching for more nutrition. And that gets calmed down real quickly on this program when you have all of these, this nutritional component for it. So these are the clinical results after 12 weeks of the clinical trial that was done. Now, our results that we've gotten with our patients that have gone through this program are actually like this, sometimes even better. The goal weight for most people over 12 weeks was to lose 7.5% of their body weight. Now, that's not body fat, that's body weight. And actually, what we got was better than 11%. So if you're that same 180 pound woman that I talked about before, in 12 weeks, in 3 months, you can healthfully, properly expect to lose 22 to 25 pounds, and sometimes more. We have a gentleman that we met with today that has been on our program for just about 3 months now. And he's a big guy. He's a big fella. He's very tall, and he's got a lot of weight. He started with what, Jill, around 460 pounds?
It was 463.
463, and today he was 400 pounds even. That's 63 pounds that he's lost in 3 months. And so when you look at the percentage of his weight, that's nearly, I think I figured it out, it's close to 14% of his body weight in 3 months. Obviously, he's got a ways to go. But what's interesting is that his percent body fat has dropped specifically along with that weight, and his lean muscle mass has not dropped. He feels great as well. One of the things, okay, so this is also the results of the clinical study, and so you can see every indicator that we would look at to make sure that things are happening in a healthy way are what they should be. You see that the body mass index has gone down drastically, weight circumference has gone down drastically, fat mass has gone down, and lean muscle mass has actually gone up. You get on other programs like, I don't, like Weight Watchers or what's the one that's around here, Joe? Nutrisystem or whatever.
Yeah, and Medifast.
Or Medifast, right? You can lose weight, but we don't see the lean muscle mass increasing on those programs for most people. And that's because you sort of get into that starvation. Did you want to share that story real fast, Jill?
Yeah, I had somebody last year, she was following a Weight Watchers program, and she said to me, well, it was around the Easter holiday. She's like, I had a Cadbury chocolate egg for dinner. I said, what? And she's like, oh, yeah, I figured it up. I had 12 points left in my Weight Watchers program, so that's what I had for dinner.
That was her dinner.
Well,
that's not good.
Needless to say, 2 hours later, she's starving.
Right. And craving more sugar because she got a spike and a crash. And the response of eating that high glycemic food is the body actually metabolically driving you to eat more calories than you normally would. I have a question here, Jill, so hold on 2 seconds. So this is from Lori. She says, sorry to go backward, but the interval training, do you know at what rate you should be working during the 90 seconds? I've looked and cannot find information on this. It really depends on the person, Lori. Each individual will be a little bit different. And so you want to try to get the heart rate down into the 100 to 110 area by the end of that 90 seconds before you do the burst again. That's the best key. And so I usually do it myself or have people do it on a machine where you can hold the handles or whatever and monitor the heart rate, or people wear heart rate monitors so that they can see that it's gone down. Now, that will be different for individuals. That will change as somebody does this program more and more. When I first started, the heart rate would go up real quickly, and then it would be real slow to come down. And now it is more. There's more variation there. Thanks for that question. I appreciate it. So how do we measure success? So obviously weight loss and obviously fat loss. There's this other thing that we call quality of life. And one of the things that you will do if you were a patient of ours doing this program is you would fill out this medical symptom questionnaire. Is that right? MSQ? And it basically is a scoring mechanism. And so it gives us some objective ways of sort of measuring your quality of life. And it asks questions about how your body feels and your joint and your mood and your sleep and headaches and pain and all that sort of stuff. And, just to take as an example, the person that we talked about a couple minutes ago, our friend Tom, when he started, Jill, what was his first number? 86, did you say?
Yes, he was.
When we first met him, when he filled it out, he was 86. And what was it today?
16.
Number 16. And so if you go to the website and you click on the information, you can actually download that form and fill it out for yourself just so you can see what your number is right now. So so success obviously is losing weight and losing fat, but it's also quality of life. And the truth is that if we had someone that came on this program and they really didn't lose that much weight, but their numbers changed the same way Tom has changed and the same way every single person that we've run through this program changes, then we feel good about that result because it really means that you feel better. And then, the weight is sort of like a bonus to me. So there's some pictures. This is another friend of ours. This is Helene who went through the program, and there are other pictures on the website as well, but I like to put the pictures up for Helene because when she first came to us, Jill and I both had a sense that we were going to have a hard time working with Helene because she was very, very, how do I want to say it, stuck in her ways. She was very, very skeptical, and her repertoire of how to cook food and what to be able to cook was just not there. She literally did not have the ability to take care of herself as far as cooking goes. And the result was what you see there on the left. And so, 3, 4 months later, you can see the difference. She's lost a ton of weight. Her scores on that MSQ have changed drastically. Even more importantly for me is how her blood tests have changed because she's been able to cut down on her blood pressure medicine, her cholesterol numbers, and the risk that those numbers show changed drastically over a relatively short period of time. And so when we talk about trying to predict longevity and quality of life, huge changes for her. And Jill and I were talking right before we started this presentation. Jill, tell everybody about the email you got from her.
I got an email from her this evening saying, "Okay, I'm ready to try butternut squash. How should I fix it?" And this is somebody who liked iceberg lettuce and had certainly never had kale before, and she's even making kale chips. So
Yeah.
she's
Really
really enjoying healthy food now.
amazing. And and she eats out a fair amount, and she's learned to make the proper choices when she eats out. And again, you can see the results. And she continues to lose. So she did the formal program with 1,000 calories a day for probably, what would you say, Jill, 5 or 6 months, and then she cut down to sort of she stepped down to more of a maintenance program that she's on now, where she's continuing to lose weight at a slower rate, but it's much more sustainable. And as we said, she has learned to do things differently. And that, right in the middle of her doing this program, she took a 2 week trip to Europe, on a tour, and was able to continue to lose weight even under those circumstances and even having gone through a couple holiday seasons. So really amazing stuff. If you want more information, I would encourage you to go to the website. By the way, now's a good time to type any questions that you have into the question box. But if you go to wellbeinggps.com, again, there's a banner on the top that flips through a couple pictures, and the first one will show you a picture of a scale and your license and ask the question if they match. If you click on that, you'll go to a page that has a lot more information. The next step, if you want to take advantage of this sort of program, is to give Jill a call. And the phone number that's on that page is Jill's direct number. So, or you can fill out a request for information. It's an email thing, and you just fill out that form, and we will either email you back or call you back, however you would like to be contacted. I really do appreciate you joining us, Jill and I. Jill, I have to tell you, you are doing amazing work, and you are really creating change for people, which is phenomenal. And I would encourage you to take advantage of the resource that Jill is and the amazing spirit that she is. She really makes people feel comfortable, supported, successful, and have the ability to be successful, and the results are really showing. Um, I always like to also inform people about what's coming up next. So the webinar in February is on PCOS. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It stands for polycystic ovary syndrome, and it's something that's becoming more and more. I don't like to use the word popular, but it's certainly more and more known. There are lots of people, lots of women that are now getting this diagnosis. And I hate to tell you, and if you're somebody that has PCOS, I hope this isn't too shocking to you, but it is not a disease. PCOS is not a disease. It is a conglomeration of symptoms that happen to certain susceptible people under certain conditions. And we're going to talk about those conditions and those susceptible people and how to reverse that. The other thing is that with PCOS, medicine doesn't have much to offer you. They have medicines that they give you, and they don't really fix the problem. And oftentimes the side effects from those medicines are worse than the symptoms that you may be having with PCOS anyways. I also want to point out, I know that we have got some folks here that are out in Boulder, and we're doing, I'm heading out to Boulder. Randy Botnick, my partner, and I are heading out to Boulder for a week of talks out there and work with some of the companies that we work with out there. So if you're online right now from level 3, I will be there on I think it's January 27th. It's Monday. I think I'm doing a talk at either 10 or 10:30 there for you guys, and I think that talk is about hidden food sensitivities. If you're with one of the other gyms that I work with out there, or one of the fitness centers at IBM or Hunter Douglas, then I'll be out there sometime during that week, and you should check with your fitness center there to find out the schedule and how you can sort of participate in what we're doing out there. I know that we've got some folks here on from NOAA as well down in Silver Spring, and I always enjoy the opportunity to come down there and participate in your health day as well as do talks. And so, just stay in touch with the fitness center down there. Jill, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Also want to point on here the archive that we have. These are past webinars that we've done. All of them get recorded, including the one that we're doing tonight, and the one we did tonight will show up on our archive by Monday or Tuesday of next week. And so there's a lot of good topics there, and if you enjoyed what was going on tonight and what we talked about, then please refer someone else to it so that they can get that information as well. Jill, again, thank you for joining me, and everyone else, thanks for trusting me enough to spend a little bit of your time. Hopefully you found it useful, and we look forward to seeing you here again in this venue. Everybody, have a great night.